After sewing the pocket hem, our next step is to pin the side openings. Sometimes I call these things the flaps. First, we have to clip to this dot right here. I'd like for you to bring it to me so it can get clipped just the distance that it needs to and we don't accidentally clip past there. If you notice, I'm only going to use the tips of my scissors and line up the end of my scissors with where the dot is so that I don't over clip. I'm clipping through both layers of fabric and through the paper with this. I'm going to flip it around and do the other one as well. Just to the dot, not past it. I don't need the pattern anymore at this point, so I'm going to finish taking the last few pins out. Don't throw this away, just put it in your bag and in case you need to use it later. All right, so I'm going to set that to the side. And I'm only going to do this one layer at a time. So if you notice, here's my tape indicating that's the wrong side, and that's the side I want facing up whenever I do this process. So I have my pattern off and I'm ready to pin the little side opening. And if you notice, I've got my seam gauge. I have my seam gauge set at 3/4 of an inch. It's halfway between here's the 1/2 inch and there's the 1 inch, and this is set halfway in between the two. And that's the measurement we're going to use for these little side openings. I've got some pins, I've got my wooden iron here, and I find it easier if I fold this back towards me so that the fold is away from me. I can use the seam gauge better that way. And I've got it folded right there. I'm going to put a pin in at the bottom. It's really important that this little side opening be parallel all along this edge. So that's what I'm going for. And then I'm going to move it up here. Again, check to make sure that it's 3/4 of an inch. Put another pin in. And then check the middle and put one more pin in. 3/4 of an inch. Make sure it's exactly 3/4 of an inch. I'm now going to take my little wooden iron and I'm just going to use one of the beveled edges, one of the slanted edges, and I'm going to move it back and forth a few times right along that edge. You don't have to kill it. You just need to press on it enough, just like on your pocket, to make the little crease along there. And mine should stay even when I take my pins out, which is our next step. Okay, it's there. I'm now going to turn it around this way, again, because I find it easier to pin towards myself. And I'm going to take this little flap and I'm going to fold it to the crease, just like that. And then I'm going to flip the whole thing over. And I'm going to start pinning in the middle because it just seems to stay parallel better if I start in the middle. And I put my pin with the head of the pin towards the inside of the bag, not the outside of the bag. It just makes it easier to sew it that way if the pin is there rather than out here. It also holds better. So I did the first one, and then I'm going to look to see, is that about parallel? I think it is. This little flap should be about 3/4 of an inch, or excuse me, 3/8 of an inch. Because half of 3/4 is 3/8. And then I'm going to put my last little pin in here. I can check. This has to be an approximate. It doesn't have to be quite as exact. But that's about 3/8 of an inch all along there. We don't want these too skinny. We don't want them too wide, because we want to be able to catch that edge with our stitching. So once I have these pins in, I'm not going to use the wooden iron. I'm just going to take my fingers and press down a little bit. Again, I don't want to stretch this out of shape, so I'm just going to do a little bit of pressure. And now you need to do that to the other three little flap things, and we're ready to get to the sewing machine.